All right, let's talk about homeowners associations. You know, HOAs. They're supposed to be there to keep the neighborhood looking good, protect our property values, right? But what happens when the very people in charge of the rules are the ones who break them? Well, we're going to dive into a real-life story about a homeowner who called them out on it and decided to fight back.
So it really begs the question, right? What can you actually do when your HOA breaks its own rules? I mean, if they make some huge decision without following the proper steps, are you just stuck with it, or can you do something? Well, one homeowner was determined to find out.
So let's set the scene. This all went down in Arizona at the Desert Isle HOA. And honestly, it's a classic story. One single member deciding to stand up to the entire board.
Okay, so here are our two main players. On one side, you've got Lewis Smith. He's a homeowner, and this guy believes in doing things by the book. You know, following the rules. And on the other side, the Desert Isle HOA board. They're the ones he accused of, well, cutting corners and ultimately breaking the law.
You know, the funny thing is, this whole huge conflict didn't start with some big, loud argument. Nope. It started with something super simple, a totally standard request from a few homeowners.
So, back on October 23, 2017, Lewis Smith and a couple of other members sent a formal request to the board. They just wanted to schedule a meeting for all the members. And their goals? Totally straightforward. They wanted to hire a lawyer to help update the community's rules. You know, the bylaws and CC&Rs were getting a little old, and they wanted to talk about the HOA's money. I mean, it's pretty standard stuff, right?
And get this, the initial response was great. The board president, a guy named Doug Robinson, replied the very next day. He said he was much in favor of the meeting. So at this point, everything looks good. It seems like everyone's on the same page, ready to work together. Smooth sailing, right?
Well, not so fast, because just 1 week later, a whole new topic is thrown into the mix, and this one was way more controversial. And yeah, it pretty much derailed the whole thing.
Suddenly, there's this new petition circulating, and this one's from a totally different group of homeowners, including, wait for it, the board president himself. And what did they want? They wanted to add a huge new item to the agenda, a proposal to completely ban short-term rentals in the entire community.
Okay, let's break down the timeline, because this is where it gets messy. So October 23rd, you've got Smith's first, simple request. Then October 31st, the second request pops up to add the rental ban. Now, fast forward to November 8th. The board has a meeting to plan that big community meeting. And listen, this is the most important part. The official agenda for that November 8th meeting says nothing about the short-term rental ban. Not a word. And yet, that's the very meeting where they decided to put that ban up for a full vote on December 16th. See the problem here?
So what was the board's excuse? Well, in an email, the president basically said it was all about being efficient, to avoid cost and time. They were just going to lump both petitions together into one meeting, one vote. And look, on the surface, that might sound reasonable, right? Save a little time, a little money. But what they did was skip a really, really important legal step.
So December 16th rolls around and they hold the vote. And the ban on short-term rentals, it passed. But look at this. It was super close. 9 votes for, 6 against. I mean, with a margin that razor thin, the process, how you even get to that vote, becomes absolutely critical.
This is where Lewis Smith said, hold on a second. He was convinced this wasn't just some small mistake or an oversight. He believed the board had actually broken state law. And so, he decided to fight back.
His official complaint really cuts right to the chase. He basically said, hey, at no point were we, the members, ever properly told that this huge rental ban was even going to be discussed, let alone put on the ballot for a vote. It just sort of appeared out of nowhere.
And Smith built his whole case on something called Arizona's open meeting law. The whole idea behind this law is super simple: transparency. Your HOA board can't just go off and make big decisions in secret. The agenda for a meeting has to be clear and tell everyone what's going to be talked about. That way, members like you can show up informed and ready to share your thoughts.
So, if you just follow the steps, you can see exactly where the board messed up. They started with a totally normal request from homeowners. Then they tacked on this super controversial topic without putting it on any public agenda for discussion. And then they planned the final vote at a meeting where it wasn't even listed as a topic. The end result? Homeowners were completely blindsided by a major rule change.
All right, so the case ends up in front of an administrative law judge, and the judge looks at everything, the emails, the meeting minutes, all the agendas. After digging through all the evidence, the court was finally ready to make a decision.
And the verdict was crystal clear. The judge's decision came down, and it was decisive. The judge found that the board absolutely did violate the state's open meeting law. Why? Because they failed to give proper notice to the members that this huge rule change was even on the table for discussion.
So, in the end, the homeowner, Lewis Smith, he won. The judge granted his petition and, get this, ordered the HOA to pay him back for his filing fees. It just goes to show you, following the proper procedure, yeah, it matters. A lot.
Okay, so why should you care about this one case from Arizona? Because the lesson here is universal for anyone living in an HOA, no matter where you are. This whole story shines a big spotlight on the fundamental rights you have as a homeowner in your own community. Here's really what this all boils down to for you. First, your HOA has to do its business out in the open. You have a right to know what they're going to talk about before they actually meet to decide things. See, those meeting agendas, they're not just suggestions, they're a legal requirement. And trying to combine topics just to be convenient doesn't give them a pass to break the law. And most importantly, if your board does violate these rules, this case proves you can stand up and formally challenge them.
So it really leaves you with one big question to think about, doesn't it? Is your HOA playing by the rules? This whole story is just a powerful reminder to pay attention, Read those meeting agendas. Make sure your community's business is happening out in the open, exactly like the law says it should.